Hello and welcome to another episode of the Digi-Tools and Accrual World podcast, brought to you, of course, by the Digital Disruptors and sponsored this week by iPlicit, the mid-tier ERP solution helping you to take your finances into the future and run your business or your not-for-profit more effectively. We have a bunch of exciting news this time around. And of course, listen out for the AI klaxon because there's going to be loads of that getting dropped in. I think it's inevitable now almost every week when we're doing this. But just a few highlights to listen out for, I think. We have got, of course, some news from Intacct, and they're kind of leading the way and pushing Sage to do new and exciting things. And, of course, some of their competitors are copying what they've already done. So we've got some AI announcements from NetSuite, which are super cool to hear about. Some really exciting news coming out of Circit with their recent fundraising round. And then Hammock and their MTD product development, and questions about are they behind, or are they just trying to get back up to parity, having stumbled when all of the delays happened a little while ago. So let's see what's going to happen with them. And of course, I'm joined by Ryan, and Leigh's joined us this week as well. So super excited to have Leigh with us again, and well, not so excited about Ryan, but it's all right. I can put up with it.
What an introduction, John. Thank you so much. I feel privileged to be on here once again in your shadow as a sub co-host of the Digi-Tools and Accrual World podcast. And thank goodness that Leigh is here to overcome all my foibles and challenges. And as you'll probably experience through this episode, as I'm sure I'll stumble over many words and fail to eloquently bring across the news. So on that note, how are you, Leigh? Are you glad to be part of the trio this week?
Yeah, it's great to be on. There's a lot of ERP news this week, which is probably a little bit beyond the stuff that I'm used to. But yeah, it's great to be here. It's always fun to chat to you guys and Indy when she's here as well.
Yeah, you know, you're the one that has to keep us two in check now without Indy around.
I'm the responsible adult.
Yeah, you're a responsible adult. But yeah, I mean, one thing I should say is that, you know, although we love doing this, we love bringing the news to anyone that's listening, we love learning. Like a lot of what we go through on this is digesting information and taking ourselves on a journey that we then try and convey eloquently, if any way, across to anyone that's listening. So yeah, we I think part of this is just enjoyment of finding out what the heck is going on in this space that seems to be changing on a daily basis. On that basis, let's kick off that news.
Okay, so I'm kicking off the news this week with news that Intuit has changed its focus a little bit more and is looking at the enterprise area, which seems to be a really common topic now that's getting a lot more interest from a few vendors with the Intuit Enterprise Suite. And one of the major parts in there is the construction edition with some native AI ERP in there and some of the really nice features like the sales tax agent and AIA style invoicing and job costing and lots of stuff in there. One of the things that the article mentions is that this is going to be a big tool for trying to shift people away from QuickBooks Desktop, which I'm a little bit staggered by. There's people still on the QuickBooks Desktop, to be fair. I would have thought they'd all moved ship quite a while ago, but that seems to be a bit of a draw for them. But I mean, to my mind, from a commercial perspective, if you were still on desktop and having to shift to an enterprise solution, you'd probably go to market and look around anyway. So I'm not really sure that holds water. But what do you guys see? Do you see that mid-tier firms that are trying to work with large clients are still looking at QuickBooks for this stuff, or are they going to go to a specialized ERP solution, do you think?
Well, firstly, I think the comment regarding desktop is definitely aimed at the US market. That's where they're still kind of massively behind. Come on, US, let's get off of checks and desktop and server and get in the cloud. So this is where they now hunt me down. I think, yeah, they might be considering QuickBooks, but I don't think that it's going to be that play in the UK market. I think what I'm uncovering a lot at the moment is businesses that want to go to the cloud. I've heard of things like Xero, QuickBooks, etc., and can't go on Xero because they're too big. And they go, okay, well, I can look at QuickBooks, and now I've got maybe the advanced or the enterprise option. And if they're specifically in the construction sector, now this makes sense to go straight to enterprise because of the advanced functionality and what they can do. That's a bit more of a step forward. So yeah, I think it's a good play. This is still a relatively new product for QuickBooks, so I think they're going to be building it out over time. They're going to, by the sounds of it, start doing it in sectors, and it makes sense to do construction, I think, specifically because obviously they're looking at the US market and going, we've got a lot of construction-based businesses still on desktop here. So let's try and entice them with some cool functionality in the cloud.
Yeah, maybe they've got a sense that construction is something that probably isn't going to be disrupted by AI, and there's housing crises in most places. So actually back construction, it will probably be all right. But I guess for me, it's tricky to know what Intuit's major focus is at the moment. John, what do you think of that? Like, where do you see Intuit's perfect spot being at the moment?
Well, I think, Leigh, I'm not sure they know what their perfect spot is, right? I think they're trying to be all things to all people. And maybe that's the challenge for them, is that they're getting a little bit distracted by having this enterprise product. We're starting to hear rumors about some of the same functionalities maybe going to come to zero. And we obviously know that they're trying to push into the US market much harder. But the one thing that Intuit have got on their side, particularly in the US market, though, is just that massive market dominance. So they don't have to worry too much about maybe having a confusing message there, because it's literally just, it's a choice of one, and then there's some supplementary choices that you could potentially make, but that aren't, that well known, or aren't really as aren't marketed anywhere near as hard. I mean, I agree with the point that you made at the beginning, which was, surely if you're on desktop products, you're going to be looking at something, should be appraising the whole market, right?
Yeah, and there's increasingly more and more options around there. So obviously iPlicit, the sponsor of today's show, you've got Xledger, you've got things like Sage Intacct as well. So lots of options in that mid-tier space.
Definitely. And as you mentioned, Leigh, Sage Intacct is one of those systems that I guess people should be appraising, and they know what their focus is, because they are leading heavily into AI, and they've got some more releases that have come out just recently. So they have released some more AI agents. If you've been following, I guess, the journey of Sage Copilot and all of its AI developments, AI agents is the way they're working. Spots that are going to solve specific cases, and then they've got an overarching agent that is supposed to communicate effectively with those. So what they've released now is they've released something called a close analytics. Now, this is adding on interactive charts, historical trends, and bottleneck detection as part, I guess, of its AI work, which helps, I guess, for anything regarding which entities need focus or handoffs, which are slowing down financial close. So it's looking at, I guess, how do we streamline that process, which is another one of, I guess, Sage's shining light objectives, is to eradicate period close. So this makes sense that they're now focusing on agents that are going to do that. They've also brought out something called cash intelligence. This is a single screen view of short-term cash positions. So it enables AI to generate these, I guess, predictions of what's going to happen on this going forward on your cash based on historical trends, and then essentially make recommendations. So what should the finance team be doing to prioritize payments or avoid potential shortfalls in cash? This is something that I think we're going to start to see a lot more of, is the kind of this AI-driven cash flow forecasting. We had people try and do this in the past. Take Fluidly as probably the premium example of where it didn't quite work. But now I think with the power of AI and how it's embedded directly into these finance systems, we're going to see more of a direct trend of utilizing these tools to do this predictive analysis. There was two other little things that they've released. One is AI-powered import agents, so the ability to take data and import it in a standard way. So we've kind of seen this in the past where you bring it in, you have to map templates, map columns, and then it automatically will align whatever that import template is into the fields you need in the system. Well, this can do it, I guess, to some extent automatically. There's probably some like education you do with the first one, and then it knows it, and it's going to do that on a regular cadence. We've seen, I think, one of the leading ones in this early on was the likes of Silverfin. I think they had a tool that was really good at importing. We're now seeing this coming directly into the finance systems as well. And there's something that I like, and I think John might like this as well, is they've got Sage Intacct Data Cloud. This is for firms that have a more advanced reporting need, and you can access your data directly in Snowflake. So one of those data wrapping tools, and query live financial data using either SQL or BL tools like Tableau, Power BI, etc. So you're now got really enhanced reporting that you don't need to rely on the Sage Intacct platform, the restrictions of that platform to delve into. Obviously, there are restrictions that normally come is how much data is in that layer. From the way they're talking about this, pretty much everything. Now, most of these features are coming out through, I guess, this quarter. Some of these are little sneak peeks of what's going to come out in Q2. But I think some exciting, I guess, developments in Intacct, which definitely to me feels like it is the product Sage are throwing investment at.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think, as always, what we see with Intacct is they're leading the way when it comes to the Sage development, because they're doing good things. if you think about the reporting that Sage tried to build into, I think it was Sage 50 and maybe Sage 200 a while ago, where they were using Salesforce as like an engine to power that. What an utter pile of crap that was. And they binned it pretty quickly when it clearly didn't work. Having the data in a database like Snowflake and then having that accessible to BI tools is like an absolute genius move. And then some of that other stuff that you mentioned on like cash flow, predictions and management. I mean, like you say, we've seen this in the small business arena for a little while, maybe not been as successful as maybe it should have been, but it's absolutely what larger finance teams and particularly larger organizations still focus very much in, is that cash cycle. So I think really cool set of tools.
Yeah, I think the point around Snowflake opens up a really interesting use case for where tech might move over the next few years, and it's this idea of a sort of a headless product. So you've got the back-end gubbins and you've got the data that's in there, and obviously firms have an enormous amount of data. So giving them the facility to gather that, get some intelligence out of it, process it, and then put that into either other products, maybe something the firm builds themselves if they can vibe code a front end for it, or add it into another product. I think that's going to be a really interesting angle for where this goes. I mean, like my LinkedIn feed is full of people saying SaaS is dead, which I think is nonsense. But I think it's going to transform substantially, and I think this could be one avenue that manifests from that as a result.
I think maybe just one very quick point on that as well. The interesting thing about having that data in a separate database means that you can use AI on it as well, assuming that there's no restrictions placed on it by Snowflake directly, which is completely diametrically opposed to what we've seen with Xero. And so again, just this is what businesses want. This is what accounting practices want. Just access to their own data. Right, I will drop that there and move on. So Circit, a product that's very, very close to my heart, because I know the team there very well, and I was probably one of the earlier adopters in the marketplace when it came to using Circit for audit and for bank confirmations, have announced a 22 million funding round to help them to improve the product and to expand their reach, and also push harder into the US market, which is a big focus, particularly in the audit space at the moment. And they've already seen some success there. So the funding round was led by New York growth equity firm 10 Coves Capital, alongside some of their existing investors, which is Aquiline and Middlegame Ventures. And as I say, it's there to kind of fuel their expansion into the US and to build a deeper bank integrations, to improve the product innovation and to fuel some growth over there. So I'm assuming that they're probably going to know it with quite a lot of additional team members maybe in the US to fund that sales growth, given that they've really only got a couple of people kind of flitting around between the UK and Ireland and the US. The US challenge for them, I guess, is that bank integrations are a big challenge because they don't have open banking like we do here in the UK and Europe and other countries. And that bank system is much more distributed. And of course, they're coming up against Confirmation.com, which is now owned by Thomson Reuters. So a bit of an incumbent beast to kind of shift. But I guess the key thing here is what they've demonstrated so far is that they're being used by over 400 audit firms, including all of the top 20 networks, and connect to more than 30,000 banks and service providers, which is just staggering numbers. And they independently verified over 100 million transactions last year, which again is just awesome. And for those people that work in audit, I want to see this data and use it alongside general ledger data that comes from your account system. It's really, really powerful. So I'm it's really exciting times for the team. I'm very, very proud of where they've got to. And as I say, a product that I'm very close to in terms of having used it and adopted it, and then helped them to grow and establish themselves not just here in the UK but abroad and other markets.
Really interesting. And John, just question from me, because it's been a really, really long time since I did anything around audit, but I remember having to plan it and get my samples and stuff sorted out. Do you think tools like this are going to eliminate really the need for sampling? Because you can just push such an enormous amount of data through a tool, get it to analyze it with AI, and then you don't need to sample. You can audit every transaction. Do you see that as a possibility?
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, Leigh, the regulators are kind of pushing that direction, or at the least, the big thing that we've had from regulators is removing caps on sample sizes, which were very prevalent a few years ago, and they really don't like that. It's still there in some methodologies, but they're trying to move away from it. And of course, when you've got products like Inflow, MindBridge, Data Snipper, a whole bunch of other products, all really focusing on doing audit at scale and doing that testing at scale, and essentially trying to shift from a sampling methodology to an audit by exception methodology, where you look at all of the transactions and then only look only get deep into the transactions that you fall outside of the expectations. That clearly makes a big difference. And I guess the longer term theme to this as well is moving to some kind of almost like not real time, but maybe near time audit of transactions automatically as they go through the various processes. Technically, I would say that the technology platforms are there to enable you to do that right now. The problem is that they're not all stitched together so that you can kind of look at a transaction that happens in the accounting system, validate that as it becomes a payment, or capture a payroll transaction in a payroll system and see that go through an accounting system and then go through a bank system. So there are still some challenges there, but the big four firms are certainly already in this, and they're already like monitoring in real time, like ERP transactions. They might not have the full wraparound, but they're doing this already. So this will come to mid-sized and smaller audit firms over time, and it will have to be led by vendors.
Interesting. So Vinyl have just released Ask Vinyl. So for anyone that's not familiar, Vinyl is a specific or a tailored note taker AI app specifically for accounting firms. And while previously it's done most of the stuff that you'd expect from a note taker, it's going to sit in your meetings, it's going to give you a transcript and then give you some insights out the back of it. They've gone one step further with this and added now an interface where you can start asking Vinyl for insights and data across all of your meetings and all of the other things that you've got in there, which I think is great for two reasons. One, I don't use Vinyl personally because obviously I'm not an accountant, but I've started really using ClickUp quite significantly lately, and that's got my note taker in it, and it's got a big brain LLM, so I can just ask it loads of questions about things that are going on, like I've got a meeting coming up with so-and-so this afternoon, go back and look at the last couple of meeting notes and help me with meeting prep and things like that. Really, really helpful for productivity. But the other side of it, as you guys will know very well, the onboarding process for new clients in accounting firms is very, very cumbersome. Very challenging, very time consuming at a point you can't really charge for it. And so I think there's a really nice opportunity here to grab some of these insights out of these initial client meetings, try and get that in a format that you can push it into a proposal product or something like that, and really try and ease off that initial onboarding process. What do you guys think of that? Have you seen that in practice at all working?
I wouldn't say I've seen it in practice yet. I think obviously Vinyl are putting themselves at the cutting edge of what's possible. So obviously, there's two angles that they've got here. They've got the data they're capturing and then the insights that come from that, but the integrations then into the practice management solutions that enable that automation. And they're kind of developing both at the same time. I think the ability to ask, interrogate is really good. What I like, and I don't know if they've talked about this, but I know that this is an example when Jordan Vickery mentioned it at a conference last year sometime, is that you can ask questions across all of your meetings, so all of your clients, if you're rolling this out effectively, to go, when did we talk about this specific piece of legislation? Because I've had it in an accounting firm where all of the partners and managers are advising their clients on something. And then at some point, someone in the team goes, you are aware that what we've been telling people is wrong, right? And then there's mass panic. And it's like, how do we update our clients on this? Who's been exposed to it? Well, now actually, you can just ask that question across your meeting notes and get back the exact clients that you have said that information to, and then specifically tailor or target them, rather than the really awkward apologetic email that you send out to everyone going, if we have advised you of this, please be aware. So this is, I think, is one of those brilliant things that not only are you doing that for rectification, but also for spotting potential opportunities. No, like an example that I have when talking to lots of firms. So, okay, we feel that digital is a need. We need to start exploring it, but we have no idea how many clients might be open to this conversation. You'll be able to get those insights directly from a tool where you can interrogate those meetings. But the number one thing you have to do is record those meetings in the first place. And then the majority of firms are not doing that in a standardized or consistent way. Maybe one partner's doing it and they go, yeah, we use a meeting note taker. No, this has to be everyone that's having those advisory meetings with your clients, and it needs to be standardized and structured, because we do this for compliance. We don't do this for advisory. We need to, as a profession, start moving to that way of structuring and creating a format around all our advisory processes.
Absolutely. And aside from client interactions, you can also capture in Vinyl internal meetings as well. And so there's a really nice use case that Jordan's put on his post around going through the last 22 demos of Vinyl and then using that to create some SOPs and standard operating procedures and stuff like that, John, you must find a real pain with all the different operating procedures and processes across different firms. This must be a godsend, right? If you can start to use a tool to standardize it.
I totally agree. And to be fair, Final aren't the first to kind of think about that. We've seen a few tools that help you capture workflows and processes, in a more automated fashion, and to help build up either SOPs, playbooks, or help and support training guides. So anything that helps like that is definitely useful. I think that's just what we're going to see more and more, like the standardization of this come through, with products like this. Awesome. Let's pivot onto Briefcase then, because they pushed out an announcement from Ruben Steenkamp, who's one of the co-founders and the CEO, to say that Briefcase is now generally available. So what does that mean? Well, basically what it means is you can jump on the website. You don't have to get a demo. You don't have to go through a big sales process. You can literally just hop on, try the product for 14 days for free with full access. And then if you like it, you can obviously sign up with your credit card. And if you don't like it, you can move on and hopefully do a good job of using that trial. Now, 14 days isn't always a massive amount of time, and particularly when we're busy accountants. And I generally do prefer a slightly longer period, maybe sort of 3 or 4 weeks. But, given that this is kind of out there and you don't have to put your card details in, that is fairly unusual in the SaaS space. So that's a good tick. And, to be fair to the guys, they have been building tons of functionality and features into Briefcase, working on that product for about 18 months or so, and have now got the big thing that everyone's doing at the moment, which is that kind of month-end financial close. So they've got prepayments, deferrals, and fixed assets in there, and of course they're continuing to build the product. As we're rolling around into show season almost, I'm sure we will start to see them and their stands and some of their competitors at various events over the next few weeks and months.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome. So moving on from that, we've got Hammock has released some new functionality around enabling joint property owners to file separate MTD returns for the quarterly update. So Hammock is really made a big splash a couple of years ago and quite shafted a little bit because HMRC pushed back MTD, and that's what they were there for, right? Hammock was specifically a product for that. So it left them in a bit of a little bit high and dry, but it seems like they're back and pushing functionality out. I haven't heard a lot about them for a while, so I was surprised to see them pop up. Looks like nice functionality. I guess one thing that just jumps out to me is we're not that far away from MTD, right? And for a product that's specifically for MTD, for them to be releasing functionality at this point around kind of property and split landlord returns and things like that, feels a little bit late in the day. I don't know if I'm massively off with that. And I think Free Agent has had this stuff in for a while, right? But what are your guys' thoughts?
No, I think you're right, Lee. I think this is something that I actually thought they already had. So I think it's one of those where, like you say, circumstance killed the progress development of the system, and a lot of the stuff they probably wanted to do or was in their short-term pipeline got deferred. And now it's come to a point where actually to make the system usable, they need the functionality. So it's become a requirement to get it done before we hit April. So probably more reactive than proactive. It wasn't used to win work. It's probably more used to defend against the clients they had secured before the whole MTD for income tax delay debacle. But yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a game changer anymore. It's not a differentiator.
It's tickets to the game, right?
It is. Yeah, exactly. Well, something that I've got is very different is that in the inventory space, we've had market leaders in the UK for a while. We've had Unleashed and Sin7 Core, which kind of dominate the market, but we've got a new entrant to the UK market, and that is Fishbowl. Now, that is a huge system over in the US. They are now pushing into the UK market. They've got the odd UK customer. They've been over here kind of testing the water, but they're now properly going after the UK market. And one of the things that they have announced to help with this is AI manufacturing. Now, what is AI manufacturing? Well, let's try and digest or get into the weeds to understand this. Essentially, inside a Fishbowl's cloud native inventory system, they've added an AI assistant that handles, I guess, work like manufacturing. So mostly around, I guess, simple production at this level. Because if you've ever come across Fishbowl, they've got a really advanced manufacturing suite that sits in a desktop or hosted solution. This is their first kind of iteration of manufacturing in the cloud native system, which I think they're releasing over 3 stages, I believe. This is the first one. Summer, they hope to kind of get another big chunk released with full product pretty much on parity by the end of 2026. I believe that's the aim, although that's not really what the article goes into. It's talking about this first release, which is what they refer to as AI manufacturing. Now, I think part of this is just bringing in manufacturing functionality into an inventory-based system. But if you, I guess pretty much any software now, if you're constantly releasing things that don't have an underlying AI structure, you're behind the curve. It needs to be open to work with AI. They've had a forecasting system inside the Fishbowl tool for a while to predict what your sales are going to be. Now they're obviously bringing this into the production element. So what does that mean? I guess they're looking at reconciling orders. They're looking at estimating time for delivery of the manufacturing process, and I guess predicting, I guess by linking it into their sales predictive tools, when do you need to produce certain, or when do you need to start production cycles to make sure you've got the relevant goods to then sell. So it will proactively anticipate constraints early and translate that context into actionable work. A statement that has no actual tangible examples of what it does. But I think hopefully I've explained much around that to kind of give you some context of what the heck that might mean.
How does this stack up against some of the more established players in the inventory space, like Unleashed? Do they need to be nervous of this, or has Fishbowl got a bit of a tool, do you think?
I think so. Unleashed are very much focused on inventory over manufacturing. They have some basic bill of materials, but they're not going after that in any, or haven't gone after that in any key way. 7 Core has more of a manufacturing element to it. So I think that's something they'll want to keep an eye on. And I think the biggest concern I would say for those players is how good and how dominant the desktop solution has been over in the US. I believe they're the number one QuickBooks inventory platform over there. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I think that might be right. And so, if you've got a tool like that and it's trying to get a foothold in the UK, you're going to need to, I guess, keep your eye out and keep notice of it. But I guess what are they trying to achieve? What they're trying to do with it? I think they're trying to take something that they're trying to transition, right? They're trying to do what like Sage has done, take a market leader in desktop and move it into cloud. It's never going to get there from day one. This is the first release of it. And what I would say is it takes a good inventory system and adds simplistic manufacturing, but with an automation engine with the AI tool called Juno that's built inside it.
Very nice.
I can't believe you didn't mention our favorite MRP system with the best name ever, Mr. Peasy.
Oh yeah, Mr. MRP Easy, or Mr. Peasy as my team seem to always refer to it as. I think that's probably now looked at as a bit more traditional. It's got a more traditional layout. It's not maybe focused on the same level of AI development. And so I think they might need to be a little bit nervous. But they are very, very hyper-focused in certain sectors, Mr. Peasy, and not in like pea production, which is ironic. I guess another bit of news that I wanted to bring is that Zoho, which are a huge player across multiple elements, but finance being one of those, has at the start of this year announced an ERP software. They are going into the big boys, or at least like planning to. So they've long offered a modular plug and play approach, lots of different elements that you can kind of bolt together. And the way they've always worked is they're very keep it within the Zoho wrapper. So the Zoho tools will interact very well with other Zoho tools, but they're not always that good at connecting with other things outside of the Zoho platform. So it makes sense to kind of bring this into a full ERP, so combine all the relevant tools and then make a big solution that will work for many businesses. But I'm not sure it's going to dominate the market. It's not, I guess, like a NetSuite. I think it's probably more of a mid-tier ERP solution where you're taking the best elements of a lot of these tools and bringing them all together in a much more seamless way in a unified design. So you're not having to log in and log out. You're basically all those elements modular, connected together. I think is a very good step for Zoho. It'll be interesting to see, can they win clients off the back of it? They tend to be very good at taking those small businesses, and once you're locked in, you kind of stay there for growth. But their marketing, I guess, like to us, the shows and stuff, they're never present, and we never kind of see what they do. Are they going to be pushing this a lot harder? Yeah, something I guess we'll only know over time.
I do wonder if this is just the same product with a different wrapper, because as you say, they've had a finance system in the broader Zoho sort of suite of products. It's never been that good, to be perfectly honest, but it's always been relatively accessible, because Zoho has a central platform and you can just bounce in and out of, the CRM, the finance system, the other bits and pieces they have. I guess what it's probably not as sort of clean in terms of its interface is that it's not like Intuit have done with, say, MailChimp and QuickBooks and that kind of functionality. But is this just a marketing speak for a UI design?
No, I don't think so. So delving into a bit of the detail on it, if you look at the way, giving your example, QuickBooks are kind of if we take Intuit, take QuickBooks and MailChimp and brought them into now Intuit Enterprise. Zoho are doing something similar. So they've added financials, which is built on Zoho Books, the financial tool, but now they've added AI for automation, and no explanation of what that means. But they've brought in, I guess, the fund tracking element, which was a separate tool, but now embedded that in. And these are all, inside the UI, depending on what you've kind of subscribed to or tailored the system to, will be what you see and what functionality you get. But it's got supply chain management, so sourcing, procurement, inventory, and production management in it. You've got omni-channel e-commerce, so the ability to connect in across multiple different marketplaces. You've got retail, so complete in-store operations, so till systems directly inside it. You've got billing, payments, procurement, manufacturing. You've got distribution, so those kind of shipping things that you see through connections. Spend, expense, travel, people, and payroll. So you've got both the payroll side and the HR side, and also tax compliance. So you've got the ability to file and do all the things you need to do. Now, that is, I guess, what I would call going to a traditional style ERP now. It's not what was a disparate set of products that didn't really work that well together. They've properly thought about how to bring them into one for ERP. And that's kind of now, in my opinion, looking to change the likes of a Xledger, which is built for that mid-tier ERP space. How well they'll do that really depends on actually how well the functionality works and how well they market it. We'll only find that out in due course.
Absolutely. I've got one last story on another ERP solution, which is from updates from NetSuite, and inevitably this has got AI littered all over it. But let's get into it. So, I guess maybe following in the footsteps, like you say, Leigh, of some of the other players, like we've heard similar announcements from the likes of Intacct and Microsoft and a few others in the last few months. But NetSuite had their Suite Connect conference in New York a few weeks ago, and they announced a whole bunch of new AI functionality, as I said. So basically, they said, and this is all just marketing waffle, but bear with me, they're embedding artificial intelligence throughout its unified ERP platform to turn disconnected tasks into streamlined workflows. And this will allow customers to automate more, gain deeper insights, improve agility, and get greater value from their data. Yeah, words, not sure what they mean, but that's great. But let's just deep dive into what the AI tools are that they're building. So they've got an intelligent close manager. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes.
Because that's everywhere, right, at the moment. So yeah, we know what that means. An AI-powered bank transaction matching functionality. Don't mention reconciliation. AI-generated report narratives. That's quite cool. I think that's quite interesting to see. An AI-powered customer summary. So this helps customer service teams resolve issues faster with role-based summaries from cases and transactions. An AI-assisted advanced pricing module to centralize complex pricing strategies and help protect margins. And then last two ones that they've built as a Suite Cloud developer assistant. So this is helping you if you're going to build anything that uses the API to connect into the core product. And then the last but not least is an EPM planning and reconciliation agent. I don't even know what EPM means, but embedded AI tools to improve planning and run what-if scenarios and automate routine reconciliation tasks. So a whole bunch of stuff coming out. This is going to be US only to begin with. No word on when that will get pushed out into the broader international product. But yeah, it's all there. So very exciting times.
Yeah, I think the pricing bit sounds great, and the connector bit, because the problem a lot of the times with going with NetSuite is you have to pay a consultant a huge amount of money to get it to actually work for you. So if they're bringing an AI tool that can help do that and reduce those costs, I think would be a massive win to start penetrating down in the smaller market. But as you say, there's a lot of buzzwords there in the announcement, but actually some meat behind it to support it. Yeah. I actually have one breaking last news story, not one that we planned, but one that has come in whilst we've been recording. I'm not even sure I'm allowed to announce this, but I'm going to record it and then we'll make a decision. It appears that Sage 50 Professional will be fully in the cloud from May 2026. This is what has been just sent to me. I don't know, we did an article, we did a discussion around an article at the start of this year where there'd been some sort of announcement, but then no one seemed to understand what was going on or back it up. And then we didn't hear anything from Sage. So it made it clear that it felt like an error. And we thought, well, this is huge, right? It's absolutely huge. If they get Sage 50 on par in the cloud, that means that every, I guess, worry that they could have had on what's happened with losing clients to their competitors could be eradicated, because everyone loves Sage 50. They love the functionality in that. Build that into the cloud. Great. Job's your uncle and you're all good. So, or Bob's your uncle. I'm terrible, obviously, with phrases. But, I mean, that feels not that far away. That's 3 months away-ish, depending on when in May. And that's going to be a huge development. Why have we not heard more about this? Is this just a rumor that's then kind of made its way to me? I'm feeling not confident on this announcement at all.
Well, I guess Sage have had 15 years to build this, so it's about bloody time, right?
Potentially, yeah. What do you think, Leigh? Do you think it's real?
I don't know. I'm just trying to desperately look for news sources in the background and see if I can see it. But what I'm curious about is if this is what they're doing, whether they've rebuilt all of the functionality as a cloud product, or whether they've got some sort of clever hosting environment going on where they're hosting effectively a desktop version, because that's not new, right? There's been hosted 50 or something like that for a long time, albeit with a third party. So it could be, I mean, that's a quick turnaround as well, right? It's only 2 months away. So yeah, I'm interested to dive into it more if, we can look at the details of it, or maybe see if we can get Phil on an episode to take us through what's going on.
The more important question, I guess, assuming this is correct, is when are they going to switch off the desktop product, right? Because that would be the most controversial move that they could make.
Switch it off in June. Everyone has to transition in May. It's mass panic. So that, by the way, that's a lie. That's not covering anything. Don't take that as actual fact.
It's actually going to happen in May. It's just to switch it on and off.
Switch on. It's easy, right? Migrate it into the cloud. No real challenge there. What I would say is this has kind of come indirectly through various people, but supposedly started as the source of the vice president of finance at Sage. So I don't know. Like I said, I've not had this directly. We've not had this directly. I don't know if this is real or not. But if it is, then this is huge.
It is very exciting. There we have it. Another episode of the Digi-Tools and Accrual World podcast, all done and dusted for this week. And yeah, can you believe it? ERP news, ahoy, and lots of AI updates and loads of other things.
I can't believe you got ahoy into our close.
I feel like John's won a bet with someone somewhere, right? You see he's a tenner up now because he snuck that in.
Yeah. You got ahoy. Bet you can't say ahoy in your podcast. I bet I bloody can.